On this vote, the yeas are 206, the nays are 222. The resolution is not adopted. Without objection, motion to reconsider laid upon the table.
Luna, tell us what we just did.
We just changed the House rules to allow new parents to vote after the birth of the child.
Seems pretty reasonable to me. And that's a sweet little baby right there.
Well, it's a very disappointing result on the floor there. A handful of Republicans joined with all the Democrats to take down a rule. That's rarely done. It's very unfortunate in this case. 96% of House Republicans voted against proxy voting because they believe it's unconstitutional and they agree that it would open a Pandora's box. And so that's what we just saw. Let me just make this clear. That rule being brought down means that we can't have any further action on the floor this week. That means we will not be voting on the SAVE Act for election integrity. We will not be voting on the rogue judges who are attacking President Trump's agenda. We will not be taking down these terrible Biden policies with the CRA votes. All that was just wiped off the table. It's very unfortunate. We'll regroup and come back, and we'll have to do this again.
Moses Mike Johnson was so mad that his attempt to shut down fellow Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna's push to allow members with newborns at home to vote remotely that he took his little ball and he went home for the rest of the week. Yeah, he's definitely going to cry in the car.
We do have breaking news into CNN. Speaker Mike Johnson just sent everyone in the House home.
A state of paralysis in the House after Mike Johnson saw members of his own conference defy him on this effort by the Republican leadership to kill a rules change that would allow parents of newborn kids to vote by proxy. In other words, not to vote remotely, not be present voting for a certain amount of certain time period. He has been working furiously behind the scenes to try to kill this effort, but in a major blow and an embarrassing setback for the speaker. He saw 9 of his members join with Democrats just moments ago to kill the Republican leadership effort to squelch this push led by Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, a Republican, and a Democrat, Brittany Pedersen of Colorado, the Republican leader of the House. Steve Scalise just moments ago. Why send members home? Why not just concede on this point? They said that they will not concede on this point. They are going to pressure Republicans who define them to change their mind, to actually vote with the Republican leadership to squelch this push to change the House rules on how members can vote remotely. And in the meantime, they're going to work behind the scenes to try to convince these members to go the other way. As Steve Scalise just told me moments ago, if these members want to stop the Trump agenda, they're going to do just that. And as a punishment of sorts, sending the entire House home.
Mike Johnson and MAGA leadership are so used to just snapping their fingers and getting the rest of their members to do anything that they want without a second thought about how it affects the lives of anyone else. They're pissed off that it didn't work this time. And the fact that Representative Luna, who was one of the most MAGA Congress people, led this effort against him, that makes him even more devastating to Johnson's little ego.
Currently, if a congresswoman has just given birth, she's not allowed to vote. It's a slap in the face to every constituent who sent us here to represent them. And it's not going to take place on my watch. Last year, halfway through my first term in office, I gave birth to my son Henry, which makes me also a first-time mom. Being a new mom has completely changed my life. My days are filled with a lot of love, definitely challenges, a ton of multitasking, but Henry's also provided a different perspective for me, especially in representing and serving the people that sent me here. Congress needs to get with the times. I'm introducing legislation that will allow women who give birth to vote. Leadership told me last year that I couldn't vote by proxy. I had a brutal recovery and was advised by doctors not to travel. You'd be surprised to know that yes, there are some members that are against this legislation, but some of those people are the very same people that voted by proxy the entire 117th Congress. From boats, from fundraisers, and from space shuttle launches. So I ask you this, how is it not discriminatory to tell a duly elected member of Congress that she can't vote simply because she gave birth to a child? This should be a nonpartisan issue. On one hand, you have it championing family values, and on another, it's giving a woman's voice in Congress all that more power.
So now, as this embarrassing fight that Johnson just lost continues to sting, it is odd that Luna seemed surprised that her party of minimal women's rights and false family values was vehemently against her proposal. But as usual, her own personal story of going through a rough delivery and recovery prompted her to fight for something that she joined so many other families in experiencing. And her audacity to oppose the president's little soldier and Mike Johnson has resulted in political tricks being played in hopes of taking her down. Even his decision to go home was a ploy to delay their harmful votes as something that she will be held responsible for when there's nothing stopping Johnson from continuing on with their destructive work anyway.
For a while, we've had the majority and we've had the ability to bring legislation to the floor on election integrity and also to call out rogue judges. And yet they chose at this point in time to tie this discharge petition killer to this rule that would also permanently paint me and the members supporting it. And I would like to also share that I'm one of the most conservative members of this body. I'd like to hold up my voting record to anyone else as not just being anti-election integrity, but also enabling a position that I don't typically agree with. That in itself, I would say in this entire process has been the most disappointing, especially from among my party.
Yeah, somehow she's still disappointed that her backstabbing party purposefully connected this vote to their other MAGA bills that she's all on board to pass, just so that she'd be faced with either voting for her proxy provision there or their MAGA agenda of further dismantling the voting system and going after judges that uphold the law in face of Trump's lawlessness. She's usually all for those pieces of legislation, but since Johnson made her choose, she knew it was for the sake of making her look like a rhino. So maybe this will be some kind of wake-up call to show her just how detached she and her party are from the lives of the people that they're supposed to represent. Because the attack dogs are still out and they're definitely barking.
What we just voted on, this rule, Luna's bill, is extremely unfortunate. You know, being in Congress is a privilege. You don't have to be here. And there's plenty of people in her district that could serve in Congress if she chose for time to be home and be a mother. I'm very much against the bill that she's trying to force to the floor and the way she's going about it, and I think it's wrong. And it's really going to open up the door to proxy voting, which is already unconstitutional, and we shouldn't be doing it. And I think members of Congress need to basically leave their egos at the door and realize that this is an important job. In the same way that soldiers go off and they're deployed overseas, they come home and actually meet their babies for the first time, and their babies are several months old. Members of Congress don't have to be here. They don't have to be here. Being a member of Congress is a privilege. You're serving your district. There's lots of seasons of life. I'm a mother. I've raised 3 children. And when my children were babies and were young, I prioritized them in that season of life. Now I serve in Congress because I'm not raising children. And I think that's a really important point to make. And if any member of Congress, for any reason whatsoever, finds them in a situation where they're not able to do the job here, the important job we're elected to do, they should step down. They shouldn't go across the aisle and work with Democrats while Democrats use a baby propped up around the floor trying to prove their point. But instead, they're holding a baby proving the point you can be a mother and serve in Congress.
You see, Marjorie Taylor Greene damn near said Luna needs to step down over this confrontation, maybe even hinting to their king that he needs to start floating primary challenges to her seat. She somehow thinks that pointing out one new mother taking her baby to the floor for this vote is proof that new mothers can do it while attached to their babies. But the thing that really put a bug up both her and Mike Johnson's asses was the fact that their new enemies actually voted with Democrats to defy them. Again, maybe it's a wake-up call to Representative Luna that her challenging postpartum recovery is something that countless other moms in professional fields all over the country deal with when faced with the demand of going back to work as soon as they get home from the hospital. You know, they usually call relating to the people that they represent as being a snowflake until unforeseen circumstances force them to see what their dismissive policies do to regular Americans.
Members of Congress need to show up for work. I support this rule and urge my colleagues to support it on the floor.
She talked about about how disastrous it was when we had proxy voting during COVID. Yeah, so disastrous that 162 Republicans actually voted by proxy. She talked about how somehow it was unconstitutional. So unconstitutional that the current Speaker of the House, on multiple occasions, voted by proxy 39 different times. She talks about about people need to show up to work. Well, I mean, people did show up to work and did participate in representing their constituents when we had proxy voting, but she doesn't seem to be that upset over the fact that Donald Trump conducts most of his business from a golf course in Mar-a-Lago. She doesn't seem to be very upset over the fact that the FBI director, Kash Patel, is asking to work remotely from Las Vegas. She didn't seem that upset that there were people on the Rules Committee who use proxy voting to go to, a CPAC convention, to basically listen to political rhetoric from people on the extreme right wing. I mean, the bottom line is Republicans love to talk about family values, but when given the chance to actually support families, they turn their backs.